If you've conquered Haga Basin, it's time to start thinking about your future, and that future, whether you like it or not, is going to involve some serious farming. My name is Kodiak, this is Legacy Gaming, and today we're sharing why everyone, yes, even you solo players, need to invest in a buggy as soon as possible. So why do you want a buggy? It's a fair question to ask, and given that it'll cost you a massive amount of resources to create it, it makes sense we start here. Buggies, once attached with a mining laser, make hand mining a complete waste of time. With a buggy, you'll be able to farm more ore in less time, all because of the increased yield of the mining laser and the insane storage capacity of the vehicle. Solo players can also make use of the buggy, they just have to hot swap seats from the driver to the turret as needed. It's a hair slower than rolling with the two-man crew, but it's still perfectly viable. The buggy's default storage is 1500 volume, which is 6 times more than your standard Sandbike. You can take the buggy out and bring back thousands of ore as compared to the hundreds you'll most likely be able to bring back with the bike, and that alone is worth the investment. A buggy is only as good as the resources you can easily access, and if there's one thing we've learned in our hundreds of hours with the game on the test servers, it's that base location does actually matter. Once you reach Vermilius Gap, you can choose either the east or west side. Either choice is fine, however, the key is to make sure you're in a location where you can access resources in the current tier, but also in the next tier. That's the reason why we built our main base here on the edge of eastern Vermilius Gap. Not only does that give us incredible access to iron, important for this project, but also puts us close enough to the next tier of resources, both aluminum found within the eastern shield wall and aerithrite crystals found within Haga Rift. You need a base location that gives you access to all of it because you won't make a clean jump to aluminum the way you might think. In fact, you'll still need iron and steel well into your progression, which is why a central location is actually one of the best things you can do to aid in your long-term progression. I should point out that before you leave Haga Basin, you'll want to stock up on as much copper as you can, and ideally pick up a few of the Emperor's Wings Mark I schematics from testing station number 2. This will prevent you from having to backtrack, at least for now. You'll also want to unlock the Trooper class, which grants you access to the Shigawire Claw, something we break down in our Ultimate Class Trainer video already released on the channel. Once you are ready to set down roots, there are a few spots we'd recommend you check out. First is the location I mentioned before, and our current main base, located in the northern part of eastern Vermilius Gap. This area gives us access to multiple zones, both current and future resources, and grants quick access to the Anvil and Rift Watch, which is a bonus. Another location is northwest of the Wreck of the Palace. This location features 2 ironworks, which makes it fantastic for harvesting iron ore and complex machinery, 2 things you'll need a lot of during progression. Slightly north of that, over the line in Jabal Efrat al-Jaharb, is a location we think pretty special. This spot has one of the best primrose flower fields in the game, which you can easily exploit every night for an insane amount of water. These 3 spots are just here to get you started. While there are no wrong locations, there are certainly some that are better than others if you hope to have a smooth transition into the later parts of progression. Before you can start the buggy build in earnest, we recommend you complete the second trial. This is located in the southern portion of eastern Vermilius Gap, and once completed, gives you the ability to craft the static compactor, which you can use to gather flower sand. This is a vital resource needed to create silicone blocks, which is an important transitionary item as you look to expand your ability to create water. Silicone blocks are a necessary component of the improved blood purifiers, which is the next step towards water permanence in the game. Believe me when I tell you, there is never enough water. Now, speaking of water, at this point in the game, it's really important to keep it top of mind. Your base should be a constant drum of activity, converting blood into water, because as I said before, you're gonna need hundreds of thousands of water throughout the course of your progression. Here are the things you'll want to keep in mind. Always carry a few blood bags on your person, and be sure you're filling these up every time you leave your base. Regardless if you're hitting caves or testing facilities, bringing back thousands of milliliters of blood turns into valuable water you're gonna need. Once you are actively refining iron, something that happens naturally during your progression through Vermilius Gap, you'll want to research and start crafting the medium blood bags, which will replace your smaller ones. These weigh a bit more, but carry almost 3 times the amount of blood. Crafting the Mark II blood extractor will also increase your blood yield per body, which means less bodies to fill up bigger blood bags. Back at your base, wherever you decide to lay down roots, you'll want to have blood purifiers running at all times. The more you have running, the more blood you can convert to water. The only thing you have to be mindful of is the power draw, which can be steep early on. Try and find a balance that works for you, but what you're trying to avoid is waiting to craft buggy parts because you weren't efficient enough with your water pipeline at base. As far as water goes, this is also the stage where you'll want to craft a Dew Reaper and a few Leader Johns. You should already be familiar with Leader Johns from your journey in Haga Basin, but they're essentially containers used to store water while traveling. However, the Dew Reaper is something you might not be familiar with. When used at precisely the right time, you can harvest water from the various flora that are scattered across Arrakis. Remember that base location I mentioned before? Well, just look at how much water you can collect in a single night with just a little effort. Using the Dew Reaper is as simple as click and hold plus walk, but you do want to make sure you're collecting the dew at the optimal time. Pressing T on your keyboard will bring up your status overlay, and in the top right you'll see a radial menu. You'll see a section that's slightly blue, more blue, and then full-on blue, and harvesting water at any period during this time will generate exponentially more water. I say all of this because water is a necessary part of creating the buggy. The last stage before we can craft the buggy parts and assemble the buggy itself is to gather the resources required to create each of the parts. Iron is of course one of the most important resources at this point, but that's only because they are a base for steel ingots. To create steel, you'll need iron ingots and carbon ore, something you can gather on the surface level of Haga Rift in eastern Arrakis, and along the outside of Jabal Efret al-Janub, where the quicksand is. Armor plating is one of the more challenging early game resources to reliably farm. These are primarily found off the shielded heavy enemies you fight throughout the game, but you can also gather them from crashed ships that land in the desert. Cut open a panel with your cutter on either the left, top, or right sides, access the loot container, and leave. Don't get greedy and try and do more than one panel at a time, or you'll become worm food. You can also find trash buggies in Haga Rift, which you can disassemble for armor plating. Complex machinery can be found most easily at ironwork locations throughout Vermilia's Gap. Clear them out and access the abandoned machinery towards the top, and you'll find what you need. You can also find this resource in bountiful quantities again inside those crashed ships that land in the desert. Finally, there's cobalt paste, which I think is the most time-consuming resource to gather in this entire build. You're going to need a lot of it, not just for the buggy, but for future crafting as well. Before you have a buggy, you're going to have to farm all of this by hand. Make sure you have the appropriate cut array and head to Haga Rift. Aerithrite crystal is found within the massive chasm that runs north to south within this zone, and the best way to gain access to this part of the world is through this opening here, between two spots of quicksand. Make your way down and start farming the crystals along the walls near any Cho mineral extraction facility, but be on the lookout for this moisture-sealed cave. Inside is a winding labyrinth of tunnels, but more importantly, tons of crystals. Gather as much as you can and then hightail it out of Haga Rift and back to base. Using the refinery, turn those crystals to cobalt paste, and you should, if you've done everything correctly, have enough to make a buggy. Like your Sandbike or eventually the Ornithopter, you'll need to research the buggy blueprints, which means you'll need enough intel to reach that tier. Clear out as many outposts as you need until eventually you can unlock the patterns and start crafting the parts at the vehicle fabricator, yet another crafting station you'll need to research. Then it's just a matter of putting all of your hard-earned resources to good use, creating each part, and remember, you need 4 treads with the buggy, not 3 like the Sandbike. You'll also want to research and craft the buggy cut array and the buggy storage. I think it's also worth taking a second to point out that the buggy cut array follows the same progression path as the handheld cut array. You'll need to upgrade and replace this attachment to the next tier each time in order to keep capitalizing on each new tier of resource. This also means you'll need to upgrade your PSU in the buggy to manage the increased power draw of each new tier of cut array. And with all of those things created, you can head to your garage, assemble your pieces, and in short time, you'll have one of the most game-changing vehicles in Dune Awakening. Like I mentioned earlier, you can take this thing out solo, but when it's at its absolute best is when you grab a friend who will hop in the turret and then make a run with you. Just keep in mind, you can't store this vehicle like you can a Sandbike, so you'll have to keep it enclosed to avoid damage from the sandstorms. Whether it's more aerithrite, carbon, or eventually aluminum, the buggy will become an essential tool in your ever-growing arsenal. So there you have it, everything you need to know about the buggy and why you should craft one as soon as possible in your Dune Awakening adventure. If this video was helpful and you want more Dune Awakening in your feeds, do me a solid, hit that thumbs up and leave us a comment down below. Let us know what video you want us to produce next. And as always, if you appreciate the work that goes into our guides, consider subscribing. My name is Kodiak, and from everyone here at Legacy Gaming, thanks for watching and play on.